Good morning. Welcome to Truth and Transparency. Well. I'm going to jump right into this because I am stoked to talk about it. I switched the title of the live for a reason because Scott Peterson, we're going to talk about the writ of habeas corpus that was filed, but I want to bring you guys back to when I did a live, and I did a couple of them, and I told you guys to go out and get the book Presumed Guilty. Okay. I said, this is by far the most compelling book that I've ever read. It was written by one of Scott Peterson's attorneys at the time. He was actually Mark Garagos's right hand. And Mark Garagos didn't do shit for Scott Peterson. He actually fucked him over a lot, if you ask me. But anyways, I was like, holy shit, you guys have to go out and read this book. Like, there's no reason this guy would write this book. There's shit in here. Like, why would you ever take your whole career and flush it down the toilet with lies? You would never. Okay. Well, I was right. And I've also said that there's never been a shred of evidence, in my opinion, when you want to talk about a case of Scott Peterson committing the crimes. I was like, you guys do know that there is not a single shred of piece of evidence against him, physical evidence. This whole case was a media blitzstorm, and it was all circumstantial. But way more importantly, I said, watch, it's going to come out. It's going to come out how absolutely fucked these police officers were and how absolutely corrupt this DA's office was that handled this case. And I'm so proud to say that I am and was 100% correct. If you are enraged about what has transpired in Moscow, all these cases with Richard Allen, these prosecutors and these police officers, it is absolutely disgusting. It is horrible. And I cannot believe that Laci Peterson's family is not outraged. Give props to the LA Innocence Project. They did a phenomenal job. An absolutely phenomenal job. Now, this verified petition, this writ is 659 pages. 659 pages. I couldn't put it down. I could not put it down. It is fucking amazing. So this verified petition for writ of habeas corpus alleges that the petitioner was wrongfully convicted when the jury relied on false evidence, including false scientific evidence, violating constitutional and statutory rights to due process in a fair trial. Now, LA Innocence Project is not the Innocence Project. So the Innocence Project, you need DNA. That's how they operate. The LA Innocence Project, they operate with forensic evidence. And in Scott Peterson's case, there is forensic evidence, scientific forensic evidence that you want to, that they were able to go and get declarations of people that testified against Scott Peterson that were experts to change their expert opinion. The scientific new evidence supporting petitioner's claims was not available at the time of trial, and it not only supports his claim of innocence, it undermines the prosecution's entire circumstantial case against him, with the main thing being that Laci Peterson and Connor were not killed on the 23rd, the 24th. They were not killed until, you got to push it, at least December 28th to January 2nd. DB, I couldn't put it down, man. I could not put this down. I covered Scott. I've always talked about the Scott Peterson case. I said, you know how much misinformation, because remember, guys, this did not get to be played for television. Okay. What they did in the Scott Peterson case is what they did in the Brian Kober case with the leaks in the media. It literally mirrors what the police were leaking to the media falsely to be put out there about bleach. I mean, about the Peterson's fucking insurance. Gross. Anyways, New evidence also shows that petitioner's constitutional right to due process and a fair trial were violated when the prosecution intentionally suppressed and destroyed critical physical exculpatory evidence. Lacey Peterson caught the burglars across the street at the Medina house that was being robbed. Okay? That's what happened. That is what happened. But she was out walking the dog. There was 11 eyewitnesses that came forward stating that they saw Lacey that morning after Scott had left, and the police buried it. And then the DA, the prosecutors with the police, they burned and destroyed evidence. Like, wait till you fucking read this shit. So the petitioner's claims are based on newly discovered evidence, are not procedurally barred, and are supported by factual allegations and evidence which, taken as true, entitle him to relief. The court should grant the writ and issue an OSC as to the claims raised herein. So, the table of contents is awesome. I'm just going to read first the claims. Okay. The claims for relief is Claim 1. Petitioner was denied his right to due process when the prosecution presented false scientific evidence by Dr. DeVore regarding Connor's date of death. New evidence undermines the prosecution's entire theory of the case and basically exonerates Scott Peterson. Claim 2. Petitioner was denied his right to due process when the prosecution presented false and unreliable evidence by Dr. Chang that Connor's body was anchored in the bay at the precise location where petitioner fished. New scientific evidence undermines the prosecution's entire theory of the case and exonerates petitioner. Claim 3. New evidence shows petitioner was denied his right to due process when the petitioner presented false evidence, when the prosecution provided false evidence by a scent dog handler, Eloise Anderson, who testified her dog, quote unquote, picked up Lacey's scent at Berkeley Marina on December 28th, 2002. Sickos. New evidence in claims 1 and 2 expose the falsity of Anderson's testimony and undermines the prosecution's theory of the entire case. That woman lied. That woman lied for the police. Claim 4. New evidence exonerates petitioner and shows that Lacey confronted one or more of the Medina burglars on December 24th. The police lied about what day that burglary took place. They said that it took place on the 26th. The jury heard that. This shit didn't take place on the 26th. This burglary took place on the 24th, and Lacey, like, think about this. You know your neighbors pretty well, and you know if you see a car in their driveway, it's not theirs, and you know if they're gone, and you're like, what's going on over here? Petitioner was denied his right to due process when the jury relied on false evidence and false argument that the burglary did not happen until December 26th. Claim 5. New evidence shows that petitioner was denied his right to due process when detectives Grogan, piece of shit, and Brochini, Brochetta, Bro Barf, falsely testified there were no credible witness sightings of Lacey and that petitioner was the last person to see her alive. They buried 11 eyewitnesses. And then by the time of the defense was set to try to call these people, they all had cold feet and did not want to be testifying for a quote unquote murderer because that's how they'd be seen by the media coming at them. Regardless, he needed to call them to the stand. Mark Garagos is a piece of shit. He knows he's a piece of shit for this. He's come out and said that he's a piece of shit. Claim 5. Claim 6. New evidence by forensic document examiner Dr. Linton Mohammed. He is an expert with like handwriting analysis type shit. You know that boat that they said that nobody knew about? It was a secret boat, my fucking ass, right? Well, they went out and got forensic document examiner Dr. Linton Mohammed shows that petitioner did not, as the jury was told, secretly buy a fishing boat without telling Lacey, as part of premeditated plan to kill her and secretly dispose of her body in the bay. Lacey's handwriting was examined because it talked about calling these different marinas to get a anchor for the boat. And it was all in Lacey's handwriting that she was calling around and seeing how much these anchors were. And there was like $68, $58, something like that. Not in Scott Peterson's handwriting. So therefore, Lacey would have to know about the boat. Claim 7. Reversal is required because petitioner was denied his right to due process when the prosecution intentionally and in bad faith destroyed Modesto Police Department's January 2nd videotaped interview with the Medina burglars Todd and Pierce and destroyed the safe in violation of the Trombetta Youngblood. It's like the Brady, Maryland. Claim 9. Reversal is required because petitioner was denied his right to due process when the prosecution team intentionally and in bad faith destroyed she had a Croton watch that the MPD collected from the pawn shop and related MPD investigation reports, which had exculpatory value in the violation of Trombetta Youngblood. Claim 10. Reversal is required because petitioner was denied his right to due process when the prosecution intentionally and in bad faith failed to collect exculpatory evidence by systematically ignoring eyewitnesses who reported seeing Lacey alive and walking the dog in the neighborhood and in the park. Claim 11. Petitioner is entitled to relief because he was prejudiced by the prosecution's suppression of evidence favorable to the defense in violation of his right to due process under Brady and its connections to here. The January 2nd videotaped interview of Todd and Pierce, the safe, the watch. Claim 11D is Detective Stoughton's admission that MPD lied when it stated at the January 3rd, 2003 press conference that police verified the burglars' alibis. They were never verified. MPD interviews with Susan and Rudy, the neighbors, the Medinas. MPD investigation into the van fire. James Roman reports Lacey knew about the boat purchase, and Lieutenant Xavier appoints report. Claim 12. Petitioner was denied his right to due process when the prosecution presented false arguments to the jury. New evidence undermines the prosecution's literally entire circumstantial case. What I'm about to read you guys is fucking amazing work. I mean, it is literally holy shit orgasmic. This motherfucker is innocent as balls. Okay. And the family needs to wake up. Lacey's family needs to wake up. They've been lied to by that police department, by those DAs from jump. Petitioner did not use a boat cover to conceal a body as falsely argued by the prosecution. Lacey Peterson's body was not found in the clothing she was wearing the evening of December 23rd as falsely argued by the prosecution. Lacey Peterson's body was not found in the clothing she was wearing the evening of December 24th as falsely argued by the prosecution. Claim 13 and Claim 14, my favorite, is cumulative error. And Claim 14 is actual motherfucking innocence. Now, okay. Claim 1. Petitioner was denied his right to due process when the prosecution presented false and damning evidence by Dr. DeVore regarding Connor's date of death. Okay. So what we're going to go to here is... Okay. On April 18th, 2003, Scott Peterson was arrested and charged with capital murder. of his wife and their unborn son, Connor. On March 16th, 2005, he was sentenced to death. I had no idea this. Okay, I knew there was fucking shit bullshit with the jury. Do you guys understand that when both sides broke, hey, we're done, and the jury's going to go back, I did my closing arguments. The jury is going to deliberate, and after 3 days, they had to kick somebody off. Then they have to redeliberate and add a new person in. Then after a couple days, they had to kick somebody off. Then they had to add another person in and begin again. And then after like 1.5 days, okay, now we have our verdict. Which basically it was like, hey, these jurors are probably like, fuck this, man. Fine, guilty. Like, I'm not going to sit here and keep on doing this. So, remember, this was not televised, this trial. Petitioner has at all times prior to trial and since his conviction maintained his innocence. On August 24, 2020, the California Supreme Court vacated Petitioner's death sentence on direct appeal. On direct appeal. This shit took forever. And on December 8th, 2021, he was resentenced to life without the possibility of parole. But wait till you find out why he was resentenced to life without the possibility of parole. It was because these fucks, the defense asked for 22 new, like, hey, we want 22 pieces of evidence. They didn't want to turn that over. So, hey, we'll just go ahead and agree a life sentence here. They didn't fight this death penalty. They didn't do shit. Now, on October 14th, 2020, the Supreme Court issued an order to show cause as to claim 1 in petitioner's initial habeas petition filed on November 23rd, 2015, alleging that juror number 7 committed prejudicial misconduct when she provided false answers on her jury questionnaire. Remember that big hoopla about that fucking redhead? Fuck that bitch. Okay. This was remanded to the San Mateo County Superior Court for briefing and an evidentiary hearing on the jury misconduct issue, which took place on February 25th and 28th of 2022. How long does that take? Holy shit, right? This is crazy. Okay. And then March 1st, 24th, and 25th. Do you guys know how long Scott Peterson's preliminary hearing lasted? Oh my God. Like a month. A month for a preliminary hearing. Scott Peterson, in April of 2023, he filed a pro se petition in the Court of Appeals for the First Appellate District asserting his innocence and raising claims of constitutional and statutory error, including a claim that the Superior Court erred in denying his juror misconduct claim, among other claims. But guess what came along for him in July of 2023? The Los Angeles Innocence Project, 2023, come along and agreed to review the evidence presented against him at trial and investigate new evidence that has since come to light. Now, let's talk about the claims. This is the best. Okay. So, in 2024, as part of its investigation, the Los Angeles Innocence Project litigated motions for post-conviction discovery and DNA testing pursuant to the Penal Code sections, blah, 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 respectfully in the San Mateo County, blah, blah. LAIPs, that's Los Angeles Innocence Project's investigation, uncovered new evidence supporting petitioner's claim of innocence as set forth in this verified amended petition for writ of habeas corpus, including new scientific evidence that was not available at the time of trial, new exculpatory evidence, and newly discovered evidence of Brady violations. Brady, bitch. Including Trombetta Youngblood claims, all of which supports petitioner's claim of innocence and shows he was denied his constitutional and statutory rights to due process in a fair trial. Here they are. A roadmap previewing the claims raised in this verified petition is set forth below to provide the court with this context necessary for understanding how the considerable new evidence, there's a bunch. It's not just like one thing. Set forth here improves petitioner's claims of innocence. The case against Scott Peterson was entirely circumstantial. Entirely. At the close of the prosecution's case in chief, imagine this, at the close of the case, which included testimony from over 100 witnesses. 100 witnesses testified. The trial court summarized the evidence as following. In quotes, there is no evidence in this case how this crime was committed. There is no evidence in this case where it was committed. Can you imagine saying that to the jury and the jury just going back to the deliberating room and being like, he just told us that there's no evidence. In closing, the prosecution conceded it also could not prove when the crime occurred. I write, wow, like did not know that. I did not know that they said those two sentences. Next, the prosecution's theory was that petitioner killed his wife on the night of November 23rd or the following morning, put her body into his truck and drove to his warehouse the morning of December 24th, transferred her body to a fishing boat and placed handmade cement weights or anchors around her limbs, put a cover on the boat to hide her body and drove the boat on a trailer to Berkeley Marina, put the boat into the water and motored out into the San Francisco Bay and dumped her body in the waters south of Brooks Island. Law enforcement found no direct physical or forensic evidence supporting any part of the prosecution's theory or otherwise implicating petitioner. Despite the execution of multiple search warrants and federal subpoenas, wiretappings that intercepted over 3,000 calls. Are you kidding me? 3,000 calls. 3,000 calls. GPS tracking devices on multiple vehicles. A pole camera surreptitiously mounted outside petitioner's home. I never knew that there was a pole camera out there. This is the first I've ever heard of this. I mean, I knew they did the other shit. I didn't know that it was 3,000 phone calls. Steady surveillance by law enforcement over a period of months, and the forensic examination of several hundred pieces of physical evidence. There were no signs of foul play inside the Petersons' home, nor was any forensic evidence found inside the home, the truck, the boat, or the warehouse, nor were there any dog alerts at any of those locations. No cement weights or anchors were found in the shallow waters south of Brooks Island, despite extensive multiple jurisdictional search efforts that included the FBI, U.S. Coast Guard, and law enforcement from numerous other jurisdictions specifically targeting those waters. Importantly, the medical examiner who performed the autopsies on Lacey and Connor after their remains were discovered testified that he was unable to determine a time, date, cause, or manner of death for either Lacey or Connor. The prosecution's circumstantial case relied on the following evidence. Expert testimony of Gregory DeVore, MD, who used a formula published in a 1984 article about gestational age assessment to calculate that Connor's date of death was on and could only have been on December 23rd. What? Wait till you guys hear this testimony. Fucking A, man. Testimony by hydrolistic Dr. Ralph Chang. I just call him Ching Chang Wee because he is amazing when he's just like, wait till you see his comments. Who used the location where Connor's remains were recovered and wind patterns rather than actual historical wind, currents, and tide data. He just used wind patterns to opine that Connor's body, and by implication Lacey's body, originated in the waters south of Brooks Island. The location where Peter, the petitioner, fished on December 24th. Testimony by the scent dog handler Eloise Anderson, who told the jury her trailing dog picked up Lacey's scent on the westernmost dock at the public boat launch at the Berkeley Marina on the morning of the 28th. The defense did not call any experts to challenge the testimony of okay. Again, the defense did not call any experts to challenge the testimony of Chang or Anderson. The defense called to refute Dr. DeVore's opinion that Connor was killed on December 23rd. Dr. Charles March did not have the training, the experience to effectively rebut DeVore's opinion. Okay. It's like, Mark Garagos, what are you doing? Who are you hiring? The defense's theory at trial was that Lacey was alive when Peterson, the petitioner, left the home in the morning of December 24th, that she took the dog for a walk as she told petitioner she was planning to do, and that a number of eyewitnesses reported seeing Lacey walking the dog in the neighborhood and nearby park that morning after petitioner left home for the day. The defense argued that someone else killed Lacey and Connor and that there was no physical evidence linking petitioner to the crimes, nor was there any evidence showing when, where, and how the crimes occurred. The defense argued that Lacey was abducted on December 24th, possibly by those involved in a burglary across the street that may have taken place that day, the Medina burglary. That's what it's known as. And that whoever abducted Lacey held her for a period of time before killing her and putting her body into the bay near petitioner's fishing location, which was widely publicized by the police and the media to shift blame to him. The prosecution argued the defense's theory about the burglary was wrong because the burglary did not occur until December 26, 2002, and was therefore unrelated to Lacey's disappearance and death, knowing that it did not. They knew, these motherfuckers knew it happened on the 24th. You know how sick this is? You know how sick people are to say, you guys knew that this burglary happened on the 24th, and you go to court and you are telling the jury that the burglary did not happen until the 26th. You know how fucked that is? New scientific evidence that was unavailable at the time of trial in 2004 shows that the jury relied on false evidence by prosecution experts Dr. DeVore and Dr. Chang, whose opinions have now been shown to be based on an unsound science. The new scientific evidence set forth herein shows that the petitioner did not commit and could not have committed the crimes that he has been convicted of. New evidence shows that the burglaries did occur on December 24th. Others were involved in the burglary, not just the two men who confessed, named Stephen Todd and Glenn Pierce. There is a third burglar, and his name is initials RZ. And that person saw Lacey when they were actually committing the burglary. Todd Pierce and RZ and others who may have also been involved in that burglary were seen driving around in an orange van that was set on fire in the airport district around the time of Lacey's disappearance. That is what you get out of the presumed innocent, presumed guilty book. Scott Peterson's homie that was doing all this shit, who is a lawyer and who was a prosecutor in LA, he joined the defense and was doing all this stuff. He could not believe all the stuff that he was uncovering. And he's like, Mark, what are you doing? This guy ends up getting fired. Him and Mark have like a falling out. But Scott Peterson wanted him to stay. If Lacey was alive when the burglary occurred, petitioner could not possibly have killed her or their son because he was long gone. Newly discovered evidence further shows that the defense was unable to present a complete third-party culpability defense at trial because the prosecution intentionally destroyed and suppressed that exculpatory evidence related to the burglary investigation in bad faith, including critical exculpatory evidence that was destroyed just 2 weeks after the petitioner was arraigned on capital murder charges. They had a meeting about it. It's like the December 10th meeting of the IGG with the Brian Colbert case. They had a meeting about it. They had a meeting about this, and then they go and they literally destroy the evidence. They set it to be destroyed. Claim 1. So this new scientific evidence, the new scientific evidence that was not available at the time of trial exonerates petitioner because it shows that Lacey and Connor's most likely date of death was not until January 1st, 2020 or 2003. January 1st. Prosecution expert Dr. Gregory DeVore told the jury Connor's gestational age at the time of his death was exactly 33 weeks and 1 day, corresponding to a date of death on December 23rd. In reaching his opinion, Dr. DeVore relied on an ultrasound technology and research that was conducted over 40 years ago in 1984. If Lacey was killed on December 23rd, petitioner is the only person who reasonably could have killed her because they were at home alone together that night after Lacey spoke to her mother at around 8 p.m. Okay. Aloha. Get your asshole cleaned out. Come on, sit down. You're here for it. Get your asshole cleaned out. Listen to this shit. Forensic evidence. Like, just listen. Get your asshole cleaned out. Come on. And your mouth. The prosecution told the jury in closing that, quote unquote, Dr. DeVore's measurements show us, and his testimony shows us, that Connor died right at the exact time the prosecution said it did. In quotes. That's what they told the jury, just like that. Right when we told you that. Boom. Members of the jury publicly stated that after the verdict that they found Dr. DeVore to be credible and reliable and relied on his testimony to convict petitioner. Dr. Peter Doublet is an expert and leading authority on it's radiology, diagnostic, all this shit, right? Ultrasound, gestational age assessment. The Innocence Project goes out and gets him, okay? As he explains in his declaration, recent national and multinational scientific fetal growth studies published in peer-reviewed medical journals show that the science Dr. DeVore relied on to reach his opinion has now been superseded and rendered inaccurate and unreliable by more recent research and studies. This is absolutely fucking glorious right here. This is what you call evidence. This is like the Karen Reed case. Hey, what's that blue paint? You know, here, hold my beer. Let me bring in Crash Daddies. Let me bring in Dr. Lapasato. Okay? This is what they're doing here. These new studies developed more robust data and the fetal growth charts that are more precise, widely used, and supersede the outdated 1984 formula that Dr. DeVore used to calculate Connor's date of death. As their expert explains, the newly published studies had cohorts of thousands of healthy pregnant women and were carried out over a period of years across populations, allowing researchers to amass substantial data sets and create far more reliable fetal growth charts than the 1984 study and formula Dr. DeVore relied on to reach his opinion. The new science shows that Lacey, and so what he did here is they provided their charts here. Okay. The new science shows that Lacey and Connor were alive until sometime between December 28th, 2002 until January 5th, 2003. With a most likely date of death on January 1st, 2003, based on Connor's gestational age at the time of the death. None of these growth charts or other data published in these recent studies supports Dr. DeVore's opinion that Connor died on December 23rd. None of them. Counsel interviewed Dr. DeVore in December of 2024. They interviewed this motherfucker and asked him whether these recent studies impact his opinion that Connor died on December 23rd. And guess what he provided for the Los Angeles Innocence Project? A declaration. Dr. DeVore acknowledged that it would have been better if he had the NICHD 2022 study at the time he testified, and he shared new calculations he had made using the data and fetal growth charts from the NICHD 2022 study. Dr. DeVore's own calculations using the 2022 NICHD study put Connor's gestational age at the time of death at 34 weeks and 3 days. which corresponds to a date of death on January 2nd, 2003, and not, as the jury was told, in quotes, on exactly December 23rd, 2002. This new scientific evidence, they went and got the expert that they had, that the state used. He comes out in a declaration and says, yeah, he writes up a declaration. This new scientific evidence alone exonerates petitioner and eviscerates the prosecution's entire theory of the case. There is no evidence supporting any theory that petitioner could have or did commit these crimes on December 28th or after. This new scientific evidence is alone sufficient grounds for overturning the conviction in this case because it shows that the jury relied on false and unreliable scientific evidence to convict petitioner, violating his right to due process, and lays bare the falsity of the other circumstantial evidence that the jury relied upon to convict him. So then what they do is they start compounding everything, which is called cumulative error. Claim 2. Now, this was amazing. I thoroughly enjoyed this claim. New scientific evidence, which is this Delft 3D modeling technology, which is new scientific technology that was not available at the time of trial, shows that the jury relied on false evidence by the prosecution expert, Dr. Chang, to convict the petitioner. Dr. Chang told the jury that Connor's body landed at the recovery site where his remains were recovered because the body had been put in the bay, quote unquote, right in the middle distance between Berkeley Marina and Brooks Island. How do you testify to that, man? Precisely where petitioner fished on December 24th. Dr. Chang did not base his opinion on any actual historic wind, tide, or current data. Indeed, he stated he did not believe tidal currents played a role at all in the movement of the bodies in the water. Dude, these are from the trial transcripts. Instead, he relied solely on derivative drift pattern data. The prosecution relied on Dr. Chang's testimony and hypothesized on Connor's original anchor point was where the petitioner fished to argue in closing that if Dr. Chang was believed, then that man's a murderer. It's as simple as that. If you believe Dr. Chang, then that man, he's a murderer. It's as simple as that. In quotes, that's what they told the jury in closing. This is crazy. Shown below is People's Exhibit 284. It was used. Dr. Chang's progressive vector diagram, okay, where he plotted, in quotes, a backtracking course as to show where he believed that Lacey and Connor started from. By Aloha. We're reading documents. Okay, your brain, that's what's sick. Your brain is disgusting to me. That's what's sick. Peace out. Aloha. Your brain is sick. Go get it checked. Dr. Chang was unable to explain how Lacey's body migrated from the original anchor location to where her remains were recovered, though. The defense called no expert to refute Dr. Chang's hypothesis. Jurors publicly then came out and stated after trial that they relied on Dr. Chang's opinion to convict petitioner. Dr. Russell Fagan is a professor at Texas A&M, a scientific researcher and an expert in all this oceanography. Did you guys ever take oceanography in college? I took it. I did because I thought it was going to be the easiest A, like oceanography, sign me up. I was like, what the fuck are we talking about here? Biggest mistake ever, taking oceanography. What was I thinking? Anyways, including the movement of water, whatever. He built a hydrodynamic model using state-of-the-art depth flow 3D flow technology that recreated three-dimensional flow phenomenon using actual historical wind, tide, and freshwater inflow discharge data to test Dr. Chang's opinion. Okay, listen to this. This 3D modeling technology that Dr. Fain used has evolved considerably over the last 2 decades and was not available in its current version at the time of trial. This dude dedicated over 300 hours to building and running a model to test Dr. Chang's hypothesis. So they went out and got this dude. Okay. Meaning the LA Innocence Project. His modeling shows that Dr. Chang's hypothesis was wrong. The 3D dimensional flow phenomenon using actual historical wind, tide, and freshwater inflow discharge data shows that the water movement in that part of the bay is nearly always in a counterclockwise direction, circling Brooks Island in a northwesterly, not a northeasterly, as testified by Dr. Chang, circling Brooks Island in a northwesterly direction, meaning that an object located at Dr. Chang's hypothesized anchor point drop would not travel to Connor's recovery site. It could not. As the red line in the image above so he did like a whole report and laid all this shit out. Okay. As the red line in this image above from Dr. Fang's modeling shows, the path an object released at Dr. Chang's hypothesized anchor point would travel is in a counterclockwise direction moving northwest and around Brooks Island, assuming the object beginning migrating on the date and the time that Chang theorized it became so it was just ridiculous. In other words, had Connor's body become unmoored at the location where petitioner fished, it would not have migrated to the location where his remains were discovered, as Dr. Chang testified. Dr. Fain then tested whether an object located at Chang's anchor point would migrate to Connor's recovery site using actual wind and tide data from other possible dates and times. We're going to take all of this into account. We're going to use these other days. Let's see what's up. Let's see if even if it wasn't on that day, what if it was on this day? What if it was on that day? No scenario supported Dr. Chang's hypothesis. None. Wow. None. The colored line in the image below show the results of the modeling and illustrate that none of the alternate scenarios that Dr. Fain ran resulted in an object at Chang's anchor point. None. Meaning so they did all these and showed all these testings. This is like, think about this. It's like taking the Karen Reed case. Okay. And having the Karen Reed case, right? Karen Reed would have been found guilty if you take out who? Her fucking experts. Karen Reed would have been found guilty if she had no experts to combat what the state put up against her or the Commonwealth, correct? Everybody would have to say, yeah, correct. What do you mean? Like no one's challenging any of this? Yeah. She would have been found guilty. Karen Reed would have been found guilty, right? And then when you guys would have found out, oh my, she's cheating on John. She's texting Higgins and kissed him and all this stuff, right? What a bitch. This fucking killer, right? Karen Reed's case is literally the perfect example of Scott Peterson's case in terms of if you take away her experts, she's convicted. No doubt about it. Like, because the jury is going to hear everything. What the fuck? You put her experts in, right? You put her experts in and people actually do work, right? To show that this is ridiculous, right? And what she found? Not guilty. Not only is she acquitted, not only is she acquitted, everyone's like, she didn't do it. Like, she was framed. Okay? So, think about it. If it would have gotten leaked out, nobody knew about the text messages between Higgins and Karen Reed. Nobody knew about any of that shit. Can you imagine that getting leaked out to the media? How that would have affected everything? No, Scott Peterson did not have a public defender. He had Mark Garagos, a high-profile attorney, Mark Garagos, who's literally... Oh. Now moving on. This new scientific evidence shows that the jury relied on false evidence by Dr. Chang that the highest probability of where Connor's body originated was right in the middle of the distance between Berkeley Marino and Burks Island. Like, how do you even make that comment? On December 24th. Dr. Fain then ran these other simulations to determine the most likely anchor location. Now, this was mind-blowing because I've said this, okay? I said, these people are crazy that you did not need a boat to put those bodies in the water. Okay, or at least hers, depending on what you think. You don't need to be on, like, you don't need a boat for this. I was screaming this from the rooftops back. Here it comes out. I was like, this is wild. I was like, see, bitches. He ran these simulations to determine the most likely anchor location using Connor's known discovery site. And he backtracked over time, as Dr. Chang did. He was like, here's where Connor's body site was. Now, let's see. But Dr. Fain used actual measured historical water movement data and real observed wind data. He actually used shit that matters. Dr. Fain's analysis showed the body's most likely anchor point was in the waters south of Point Isabel, in the small and embayment in the Albany Bulb area, indicated by the green star here below. And I'm like, wait, that's off of land. This is off of land. Whew. The yellow line in the image above shows the path the bodies would have taken, backtracking the path from the recovery site. The green star indicates the body's point of origin, and the yellow star indicates Lacey's recovery site, and the red star indicates Connor's recovery site. Dr. Fain's analysis is supported by other evidence in the record, and I was like, no way. I was like, what? Oh, Jeffrey Bear was head diver during the multi-jurisdictional bay search operations and efforts from late December 2002 through May 2003. He testified that the waters around the Albany Bulb could not be searched by divers because those waters were too shallow for the boats using sonar technology to enter. People's Exhibit 69A from the trial. Dr. Fain's modeling using state-of-the-art, like I said, the depth 3D flow model technology shows that Dr. Chain's hypothesis was wrong, and the body's most likely anchor point was in the small embayment in the Albany Bulb area just south of Point Isabel, where Lacey's remains washed ashore, and not where petitioner fished on December 24th, as the jury was told. The Albany Bulb is a peninsula formerly known as the Old Albany Landfill, which had been closed for numerous years, but had walking trails that go along the way around it. And it was open to the public, and people used that on a daily basis every single day. The photos below are from the East Shore State Park General Plan, published December of 2002. And they show that the Albany Bulb provided numerous remote land access points from which a body could be put into the bay without the need for a boat. Boom! And that's exactly what the fuck happened. The people that were involved in that burglary, these motherfucking meth heads, these meth makers, who do you think makes money off of the drugs? Because when they're dirty cops, what do? Oh, God, they're getting them kickbacks. Shit was going to hit the fan if it truly came out on what the hell, who these burglars were, and the meth ring that was going on over there. Yeah, let's talk about that. Sick fucks. Anyways, so yeah. I mean, and there's more. There's more. Modesto, God, I was there. Yeah. Now, check this out. If that wasn't enough to just set your mind like, whoa, ready? The general plan also states that in 2002, red algae was a predominant plant species in the waters just south of Point Isabel and along the east side of the North Basin. The same location Dr. Fain's modeling shows Lacey's likely anchor point to be. Evidence at trial showed that the criminalist who examined the pants Lacey was wearing when her remains were found noted, in quotes, a pinkish stain color, which tested negative for the presence of blood, causing the criminalist to query whether the staining was from red algae. This is what you call motherfucking evidence. This is the circumstantial evidence that you like. Yes, let's talk more about this. If this would have been heard, the jury would have heard all this shit. The jury is like, yeah, bye-bye, Chang. We'll come and see you because I love Chinese food. I'll come and see you and get the special. But absolutely not. We're not believing any of this shit. You're going to go with this because it all is encompassing. I could not believe it, right? Dr. Fain's new modeling shows that Dr. Chang's opinion that the anchor point for the bodies was precisely where petitioner fished on December 24th was false and scientifically unsound, and that Lacey's body was likely put into the bay around the Albany Bulb, a peninsula with multiple land access points. When the defense proffered the theory at trial that somebody abducted Lacey and held her for a number of days before killing her and putting her body in the bay, the prosecution argued that the defense's theory was absolutely ridiculous, ludicrous. It's not reasonable. It didn't happen. And that the only reason those bodies were found is what Dr. Chang testified to, not because of some magical frame-up job. Dude, there wasn't a plan to be a frame-up job until they released Scott Peterson's alibi. This is why people are not allowed to tell people their alibis, because then they can fuck with them. Scott Peterson's alibi was known publicly by December 25th that he went fishing. Everybody knew it. And this is what one of my lives was about when I talked about Steve Goncalves wanting to know what somebody's alibi was. I was like, dude, you need to go see the Scott Peterson case. This is why nobody will know about people's alibis. The prosecution admitted that the Modesto Police Department issued a press release on December 28th, broadcasting that petitioner had gone to the Berkeley to fish on December 24th, but argued it was not reasonable to believe someone had abducted Lacey and held her for some time before killing her. So someone has to hold her for 4 days before they have any idea where that guy went. But that is precisely what happened. See claim recent scientific studies show that the earliest possible date of death was on December 28th, 2002. Take it fucking down, man. And you want to know what's crazy about it? Is who was adamant of putting that out? And who was adamant about covering up for those burglars? The police. The police. The police. The police. The po-po. The police. Sick fucks. The police and media steadily publicized petitioner's fishing location on a nearly daily basis beginning on December 25th, as Landis has just stated. On January 5th, 2003, the Modesto Bee published a map showing the precise area police suspected they would find Lacey's body. The front page article shows that police believed they would find Lacey's body in the waters where petitioner had fished on December 24th, immediately adjacent to the Albany Bulb. The police. God, they couldn't investigate for shit, but they just knew where that body would be. Police. Fuck this shit. I'm so sick. And this is not even, we're not even into the good shit about what the DA and the police did to destroy evidence. We're not even to that part. Peterson told police that he launched his aluminum boat at Berkeley Marina, then went northwest and fished around Brooks Island, said Police Sergeant Ron Cloward, who is directing the search. The new evidence in Claim 1 shows that Lacey and Connor were most likely killed on January 1st, 2003, and not before December 28th at the earliest, based on scientific research and studies that were unavailable at the time of the trial. The new scientific evidence in Claims 1 and 2 together shows that a person or persons other than petitioner abducted Lacey on December 24th, held her for a number of days before killing her, and then put her body in the bay, most likely in the waters around the Albany Bulb. I want to know if there's potentially a ransom note out there that somehow got intercepted and got burned and it got destroyed as well. Okay? Again, the Albany Bay, which had many land access points, so that the body would eventually be found near the area where petitioner fished, which was widely publicized to shift blame to him. Now, this is where I'm going to pick up here at noon. I have to handle a Zoom meeting here at 11:30. And with that said, come back and join me. You guys, this shit, you just can't put it down. It's so good. The trial was live on Court TV. No, it wasn't. False. Why are you spreading false information in here? The TV was not publicized. Bye.